Welcome back. Today's session is a special one, and for good reason. We're diving into Chapter 8, Writings from the Dalit Margins, from our newly launched book, A Comprehensive Companion to Indian Writing in English. Why is this chapter so important? Because in your previous UGC NET exam, 3 questions came directly from this section. And looking at the trend, you can expect a similar pattern this time as well. This session will be slightly longer than usual, but every minute is packed with value. We've not only covered everything from the previous year questions, but we've also added key texts and insights that give you a strong conceptual foundation that makes this session solid and exam-proof. So stick with me till the end, and don't forget, you'll find a special link in the video description to practice PYQ-based MCQs directly from this session. Everything that has been asked and might be asked again. Let's get started. Dalit literature isn't just a genre. It's a voice of resistance, a voice that has been silenced for centuries and is now writing its way into history. This literature rises from lived experience. From the raw truths of caste-based violence, marginalization, and survival, it spans across languages: Marathi, Tamil, Hindi, Odia, Kannada, Punjabi, Bhojpuri, Bangla, and across forms: poems, short stories, life narratives, testimonials. But its roots go deeper. Way before the word Dalit became a literary category, writers like Jyotirao Phule with Gulamgiri in 1873 and thinkers like B.R. Ambedkar were already shaping a radical imagination. Even works like Tagore's Chandalika in 1933 dared to center an untouchable girl claiming agency, post-independence. The movement surged. Dalit Panthers, Namdev Dhatsal, Bama, and many more carved out a space of protest and pride. And then came Dalit feminist voices, Urmila Pawar, Baby Kamble, who brought in the intersection of caste, class, and gender. Their stories spoke of pain, but also of power. Today, writers like Jaydeep Sarangi, Mahasweta Devi, Neerav Patel, Imayam, and Perumal Murugan continue this lineage, redefining literature as both art and activism. Vachana Sahitya or Vachan Sahitya emerged in the 11th century as a form of rhythmic prose in Kannada. It flourished during the 12th century Sharan Andolan with saints like Basvanna, Akka Mahadevi, and Allama Prabhu. These writings rejected Brahmanvadi Karmakand, promoting equality and personal devotion. But before all of them, there was Maddara Chennaiya, an 11th century saint from the Chamar Jati. He is revered as the first Vachankar and often called the father of Vachana poetry. His verses blend bhakti with a radical critique of caste. Alongside him, Dohara Kakkaya, a Dalit poet from the Jangam Sampradaya, wrote powerful confessional poems. These voices formed a proto-Dalit literary tradition long before the term existed. Caste-conscious expression in India didn't begin with modern Dalit literature. It runs deep through early Bhakti Andolan and vernacular traditions. In Marathi, poets like Gora, Chokha Mela, and Karma Mela expressed deep devotion while resisting caste through their lived experiences. In Tamil, the Siddhar poets, as seen in the 12th century Periya Puranam, often came from marginalized castes. Their writings questioned Brahmanvadi virtues using mystical and anti-ritualistic verses. In Odia Sahitya, the Pancha Sakha Kavi, Balram Das, Jagannath Das, Achyutananda Das, Jashobant Das, and Anand Das wrote sacred texts in Lokbhasha, shifting away from Sanskrit ka Prabhutva. Among them, Shudramuni Sarla Das stands out. His works like Odia, Mahabharat, Bilanka Ramayana, and Chandi Puran give voice to common people and critique elite structures. In Telugu regions, poets like Potuluri Veerabrahmam and Yogi Vemna condemn Jati Pratha and untouchability through verses focused on ethical living and dignity of labor. Together, These figures show that long before the label Dalit Sahitya, a shared resistance was already in motion, vernacular, spiritual, and powerfully political. In 1972, the Dalit Panthers emerged in Maharashtra as a bold response to caste-based oppression. Founded by Namdev Dhatsal, Raja Dhale, and J.V. Pawar, this movement was inspired by America's Black Panthers and fueled by Ambedkarwadi thought mixed with Marxwadi Vichardhara. Their 1973 manifesto demanded dignity, rights, and justice, not just for Dalit communities but also for women, Mazadur, and landless workers. Closely tied to the Little Magazine movement in Marathi Sahitya, they created a new literary and political language of resistance. Though short-lived, the Dalit Panthers sparked a revolution in caste consciousness that still echoes in today's movements for equality. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar, or B.R. Ambedkar, born in the year 1891 in Mahu, Central Provinces, was not only the chief architect of the Indian Constitution, but also a revolutionary thinker who reshaped the discourse on justice, caste, and rights in modern India. Revered today as the father of the Indian Constitution, Ambedkar's life was marked by resilience, scholarship, and radical reform. Born into a Dalit Mahar family, he faced untouchability from an early age, an experience that would drive his lifelong mission, the annihilation of caste. After completing his studies at Columbia University and the London School of Economics, Ambedkar made his early mark with The Problem of the Rupee in the year 1923, positioning himself within India's emerging economic discourse. But it was his political leadership and moral courage that brought him to the forefront of national life. As India's first law minister after independence, serving from the year 1947 to 1951, and as the chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee, he ensured that the foundational text of the nation enshrined equality, liberty, and social justice. His activism was uncompromising. In the year 1927, during the Mahad Satyagraha, he led Dalit protesters to assert their right to access water from public tanks, an act of defiance against centuries of caste exclusion. At this moment, he declared untouchability, the mother of all our poverty and lowliness. These words crystallized his belief in structural reform over symbolic change. His demand for separate electorates for Dalits led to a historic confrontation with Mahatma Gandhi, culminating in the Pune Samjhauta, Pune Pact, in the year 1932. This agreement, signed after Gandhi's fast unto death, resulted in reserved seats for Dalits within the Hindu electorate, but left unresolved tensions about authentic representation. Ambedkar remained critical of Gandhi's paternalistic approach to the Dalit question, challenging him in works like Mr. Kotar Alagar, Gandhi and the Emancipation of the Untouchables, 1943, and What Congress and Gandhi Have Done to the Untouchables, 1945. His radical critique of caste culminated in Annihilation of Caste, written in the year 1936 as a speech that was never delivered due to its radical tone. Ambedkar published it himself, and it remains one of the most powerful political manifestos in Indian history. In it, he argued that no reform could succeed without the total eradication of caste. This was not just rhetoric. It was a call to reconstruct Indian society from its epistemic roots. In Federation versus Freedom, 1939, he further outlined his vision for an Indian polity that was not only free from British rule, but also structurally equitable. His later years saw a profound turn towards spirituality, not as retreat, but as renewal. In October 1956, weeks before his death, Ambedkar embraced Navyan Bodh Dharma, Navayana Buddhism, along with hundreds of thousands of followers. His final work, Buddha and his Dhamma, published posthumously in 1957, offered a reinterpretation of Buddhist philosophy rooted in reason, morality, and social justice. Across economics, law, religion, politics, and autobiographical fragments, Ambedkar constructed an entire counter-tradition of knowledge. He remains the ideological foundation of Dalit literature and resistance in India. his legacy is not confined to statutes or memorials. It lives in every literary and political space that demands dignity, justice, and the complete dismantling of caste. Mulk Raj Anand, born in the year 1905, stands at the dawn of Indian English fiction as a humanist committed to justice. Though not a Dalit, he came from a Khatri background. Anand was among the first writers to center Dalit experiences with empathy and urgency. His groundbreaking novel Untouchable in the year 1935 follows Bakha, a young latrine cleaner, through a single day of humiliation and rejection. It is a scathing portrayal of caste-based violence. In The Road from the year 1961, the character Bhikkhu continues this legacy, building a road he may never walk on with dignity. Deeply influenced by Gandhiji's anti-untouchability campaign and rooted in Marxwadi Vichar, Marxist ideas, Anand saw literature as a tool of reform. While his was not a Dalit voice, it was one of solidarity own that laid the foundation for the rise of authentic Dalit literature in the years to come. M.N. Srinivas, born in the year 1916, was one of India's most influential Samaj Shastri and ethnographers. His concept of Sanskritikaran, Sanskritization, and Prabhavshali Jati, dominant caste, theory redefined how we study caste and mobility in post-colonial India. His landmark work, The Remembered Village, published in 1978, recreated from memory after a fire destroyed his notes, explores life in Rampura, a village in Karnataka. The book stands out for its empathy, reflexivity, and lyrical narration. As the founder of the Sociology Department at Delhi School of Economics, Srinivas bridged fieldwork with theory and built a foundation for future rural and caste studies in India. Devnur Mahadev, born 1948, is a towering voice in Kannada Dalit literature and a key figure in the Dalit Bandaya Andolan. His acclaimed novel Kusuma Bale, which won the Sahitya Akademi Puraskar, broke traditional forms to express Dalit identity, trauma, and awakening with raw honesty and innovation. Earlier, Odalala exposed caste and institutional power with deep roots in rural life. Mahadev's activism goes beyond writing. He rejected state awards and refused symbolic posts like the Rajya Sabha nomination and Kannad Sahitya Sammelan chairmanship. In 2022, he challenged the RSS with a bold book published through a low-cost open access model. Through language, resistance, and fearless writing, Devnur Mahadev reshaped the very soul of Kannada literature. Lal Singh Dil, born 1943, died 2007, was a revolutionary Punjabi poet shaped by the Naxalwadi Andolan and the brutality of caste. Born into the Chamar caste, Dil faced public beatings for using upper caste wells, an ordeal he recounts in his powerful autobiography Dastan 1998. His poetry, Satluj Di Hawa 1971, Bahut Sare Suraj 1982, Sattar 1997, the posthumous Aj Billa Fir Aya 2009, and the omnibus Naglok 1998, reprinted 2007, Burn with Pain, Protest and Memory. Though he later converted to Islam, he never dropped his name. Lal Singh Dil remained a poetic voice of resistance, raw, unfiltered and unforgettable. Tulsi Ram, born 1950, died 2015, was a Dalit Vidwan, Marxwadi Chintak and professor at Jawaharlal Nehru Vishwavidyalay. His two-part autobiography, Murdahiya 2010 and Manikarnika 2014, is a cornerstone of Hindi Dalit literature. Murdahiya revisits his childhood in Dharampur, Azamgarh, revealing the raw realities of caste and poverty. Manikarnika continues his journey through academia and political activism, deeply rooted in Ambedkarite and Bodh Vichar Dhara. With Marxist critique and spiritual inquiry, Tulsi Ram's writings blend personal memory with ideological resistance, making him one of the most profound voices in contemporary Dalit autobiography. Om Prakash Valmiki, born 1950, died 2013, was one of the most powerful voices of Dalit Sahitya. Born in Barlagam, Muzaffarnagar, Uttar Pradesh, he rose to national prominence with his autobiography Juthan, 1997. The title, referring to leftover scraps of food, became a chilling metaphor for caste dehumanization. Through his stark prose, Juthan became a counter-memory, rejecting the sanitized narratives of post-independence India. Translated by Arun Prabha Mukherjee, Juthan exposed caste-based oppression in raw, honest detail. But Valmiki was more than a memoirist. His poetry collections, Sadiyon Ka Santaap, 1989, Bas, Bahut Ho Chuka, 1997, and Ab Aur Nahi, 2009, were fiery calls for justice. His short stories like Those in Salam, 2000, and Guspattiye, 2004, along with the English anthology Amma and Other Stories, 2008, gave voice to everyday Dalit struggles. He also theorized Dalit aesthetics in Dalit Sahitya Ka Saundarya Shastra, 2001, and explored his community's history in Safai Devta, 2009. His play Do Chehra further proved that for Valmiki, literature was resistance and every sentence was a rebellion. Sharan Kumar Limbale, born in 1956 in Henurgam, Solapur Jilla, Maharashtra, is one of the strongest voices in contemporary Dalit Sahitya. His autobiography, Akkar Mashi, translated as The Outcast, was published in 1984 when he was just 25. The book explores his childhood trauma of being born to a Dalit mother and an upper caste pita, exposing deep wounds of caste, sexual exploitation, and illegitimacy. It quickly became a landmark in Marathi Dalit Atmakatha. But Limbale is not just a writer, he is a theorist and literary revolutionary. His critical text, Towards an Aesthetics of Dalit Literature, 2004, calls for an Anubhava-based aesthetic, valuing lived experience over abstract ideals. He rejected the old canon of Satya, Shivam, Sundaram, arguing that beauty and truth must serve justice, not just tradition. He has written more than 40 works, including Dalit Sahitya Ke Saundarya Shastra, Dalit Panther, Dalit Prem Kavita, and Punha Akarmashi. Through literature, criticism, and activism, Sharan Kumar Limbale reshaped Indian literary modernity, putting the margins at the very center. Basudev Sunani, born in 1962 in Odisha, is one of the leading Dalit literary voices from the region. Though trained as a veterinary surgeon, his true impact lies in his contribution to Odia literature, where he channels lived Dalit experience into poetry, fiction, and sharp critical essays. His poetry collections like Aneka, Kichi Ghatibara Achi, Mahula Ban, Asprishya, Karaddi Hata, Chi, Kalia Ubacha, or Bodh Hue Bhal Paiba Motte Jana Nahing are known for their unflinching imagery and unapologetically political tone. His novel Pada Podi and essays such as Dalit, Punjivad or Bhumandali Karan and Ambedkarism. A Way of Life interrogate caste, capitalism, and the cultural cost of globalization. In 2009, his English translations in Cast Out gave his voice a global audience, but Sunani's activism goes beyond the page. He actively revives traditional Dalit forms like Dom Sangeet and language reclaiming a cultural identity erased by caste hierarchies. His pen is not just a weapon of protest but a tool of restoration. Perumal Murugan, born in 1966, is a powerful literary voice from Tamil Nadu, celebrated for his rooted yet radical portrayals of caste, gender, and rural life. A scholar of Tamil literature and author of over a dozen novels, his stories speak in quiet resistance, often anchored in the soil and silence of village life. His breakout novel One Part Woman, published in 2010, tells the tale of a childless couple in colonial Tamil Nadu, torn apart by social norms and religious dictates. Its candid exploration of caste, sexuality, and societal pressure triggered outrage, protests, and even pushed Murugan into a temporary literary exile. His haunting words still echo, Perumal Murugan is dead, he is no god, yet he returned with more courage and deeper conviction. In Pyre, he narrates the doomed love story of an intercaste couple, revealing how love is punished in a society obsessed with purity. In Punachi, a simple black goat becomes a symbol of the voiceless, capturing the quiet pain of those trapped at the bottom of the caste ladder. Though not Dalit himself, Murugan's work walks alongside the oppressed, his narratives translated into 10 languages. Like Seasons of the Palm, Estuary, and Rising Heat, weave realism with allegory, resistance with empathy. He is not just a Tamil writer, he is a chronicler of caste, a voice of the silenced, and a quiet revolutionary in contemporary Indian literature. Shantabai Krishnaji Kambe. Born in the oppressed Mahar caste in Mahud, Solapur district, was a pioneering Dalit writer and educator. Denied entry into classrooms, she learned by listening from outside. A testament to her perseverance. Her landmark autobiography, Madhya Janmachi Chitrakatha, The Kaleidoscopic Story of My Life, first serialized in Purva magazine in 1983 and published in full in 1986, became the first Dalit woman's autobiography in Marathi. It highlights double discrimination faced by Dalit women both outside and within their communities. The work was later adapted as Najuka on Doordarshan in 1990 and included in the Mumbai Vishwa Vidyalaya syllabus. Kambe's writing remains a pillar of Dalit feminist literature. Mahasweta Devi was a towering literary and activist voice who relentlessly documented the lives of India's most marginalized, especially Adivasi and Dalit communities. Though not a Dalit herself, her body of work, spanning over 100 novels and 20 short story collections, confronts caste, class, and colonial violence with clarity and compassion. Her novel Aranyadikar, Rights Over the Forest, won the Sahitya Akademi Puraskar in 1979 for its portrayal of Birsa Munda, the tribal revolutionary. In Hazar Chaurasi Ki Maa, Mother of 1084, she exposes the cost of political rebellion and maternal grief during the Naxalwadi Andolan. Her activism was equally fierce. She championed the case of Chuni Kotal, whose suicide exposed brutal casteism in academia. Honored with the Padma Vibhushan Gyanpith Puraskar, Mahasweta Devi remains a symbol of how literature can fuel resistance and social justice. Baby Kamble, popularly known as Baby Tai Kamble, was a pioneering Dalit feminist writer and reformer from Maharashtra whose life and work reshaped the landscape of Dalit women's literature. Born into the Mahar community, she was deeply inspired by Bhimrao Ambedkar emancipatory vision. Her groundbreaking autobiography, Jinang Amuchang, Our Life, serialized in Stree magazine and published in 1986, is considered the first autobiography by a Dalit woman in Marathi, and possibly in any Indian language. Written in secrecy for nearly 2 decades, the work was eventually published with support from feminist scholar Maxine Bernson. Translated into English as The Prisons We Broke by Maya Pandit, the text critiques caste and patriarchy with searing honesty. Unlike upper caste women's autobiographies, Kamble's narrative addresses both external oppression and internalized subjugation within Dalit communities. She often insisted that the story belonged to her entire community, not just herself, making her work a collective counter-memory. Beyond literature, she was a committed activist. Establishing a Mahila Mandal in Falatan, advocating for Dalit women's education, and founding an ashram shaga in Nimbure for marginalized children. Her poetry collection Man Boltang, The Mind Speaks, continues her engagement with Ambedkari Vichar, affirming her legacy as a radical thinker and voice of the oppressed. Kumud Somkuvar Pavade, the first Ambedkari woman Sanskrit scholar, broke caste barriers by mastering Sanskrit, a language long dominated by Brahmanavadi structures. Her autobiography, Antahas Fort, The Explosion Within, reveals the caste and gender biases she faced. A Dhamma Diksha convert in 1956 and founder of the National Federation of Dalit Women, she remains a fierce advocate for social justice and Dalit women's education. Urmila Pawar, a celebrated Marathi lekhak and samajik karyakarta, is known for confronting caste and gender oppression through deeply personal and political narratives. Her autobiography, Aidan, The Weave of My Life, translated by Maya Pandit, powerfully interlaces memory, identity, and struggle. In We Also Made History, co-written with Meenakshi Moon, she foregrounds Dalit women in the Ambedkar Andolan. Through fiction like Kavach, A Childhood Tale, and Mother Wit, she continues to enrich Dalit feminist thought with honesty, critique, and solidarity. Bama Susairaj, a trailblazing Tamil Dalit Isai Lekhika, redefined Dalit Nari Lekhan with her autobiographical novel Kurukku in 1992, a bold account of caste and faith-based oppression. Despite backlash, it won the Crossword Book Award and is now widely taught. In Sangati and Vanham, she explores Dalit Mahila Sangharsh and intercaste tensions. Her short stories, Kusumbukaran, Oru Tattvam Erumayum, and Kandittam, critique religious hypocrisy. Through literature and activism, including founding a school in Uttarmerur, Bama asserts writing as resistance and reclamation. Sharmila Rege, head of the Krantit Jyoti Savitribai Phule Women's Studies Center at the University of Pune, revolutionized Indian feminism by introducing the Dalit standpoint perspective in her influential book Writing Caste, Writing Gender. She challenged Savarna feminist frameworks and emphasized Phule Ambedkar Vadi Vichardhara. Her posthumous work Against the Madness of Manu spotlighted Bhimrao Ambedkar's feminist vision. Honored with the Malcolm Adesasya Award, she uplifted Dalit Chhatra voices and transformed feminist historiography by integrating Lok Paramparai and subaltern archives. Her legacy bridges theory and grassroots activism. Gogu Shamla, a pioneering Telugu Dalit Narivadi Lekhika, channels the oral traditions of the Madiga Samudaya into her storytelling. Her celebrated work, Father May Be an Elephant and Mother Only a Small Basket, but presents grassroots narratives of caste and gender in Telangana. Her earlier collection, Nalpoddu, Black Dawn, blends Kavita or Gadya to reflect Dalit women's lived realities. Actively involved in the Dalits and Minorities Initiative and journals like Bhumika, she champions a movement-based subaltern feminist aesthetic grounded in orality and resistance. Meena Kandasamy, a poet, novelist and activist from Chennai, has redefined Indian literature through a radical feminist and Viruddha Jati Drishtikon. Her poetry collections touch, with a foreword by Kamla Das, and Miss Militancy reinterpret myth and caste with fierce lyricism. Her novel The Gypsy Goddess draws from the Kilvainmani Narsanhar, while When I Hit You confronts Vivahik Hinsa as systemic oppression. Through works like Tirukkural, The Book of Desire and Ayankli, a Dalit leader of organic protest, she fuses protest translation and biography into a transgressive literary mode, asserting resistance as both form and content. In Indian English literature, Adivasi Lekhan has long remained on the margins, excluded not by lack of depth, but by systemic neglect, linguistic erasure, and the dominance of written over oral traditions. In recent years, however, a bold literary emergence has taken shape through the words of Hansada Sovendra Shekhar, The Adivasi Will Not Dance, Jacinta Keraketta, Angor, and others, offering deeply personal accounts of land, identity, and loss. These stories speak of Bhumi Chinav, Sanskritik Sharan, Langik Hinsa, and Prakritik Vinash, drawing attention to a lived reality often rendered invisible in mainstream narratives. From Ruby Hembrum's Adivani to Gopinath Mahanti, Paraja, Pratibha Rai, and Mamang Dai, these voices stitch together a powerful resistance literary, political, and cultural. They preserve endangered Janjatiya Bhashaएं, carry forward Lok Kathaएं, and challenge the Varchaswavadi Itihas. This is not just storytelling, it is reclamation. In this chapter, we journey through these silenced voices that are now beginning to speak, write, and reshape the very idea of Indian literature. Gopinath Mohanty, a towering figure in 20th century Odia Sahitya, is renowned for bringing tribal narratives to the literary forefront. Awarded the first Sahitya Academy Award in 1955 for Amrita Santana and later the Nanpith, Mohanty's novels like Dadi Buga in 1944 and Parja in 1945 explore the lives of Odisha's tribal communities with ethnographic precision and emotional depth. His fiction examines the erosion of tribal identity under Aupniveshik Kanun, the disruption of traditional land systems, and the existential tensions faced by communities like the Kandh and Savra tribes. With over 24 novels, Mohanty stands as a literary anthropologist who chronicled the cultural transformation of indigenous life with unparalleled realism and compassion. Narayan, Kerala's first tribal novelist, broke new ground with Kocharethi in 1998, a landmark novel portraying the Malaraya community's history, culture, and survival amidst displacement and modern encroachment. Based on the lives of Kunjipennu and Kochuraman, the novel reflects deep personal and communal memory. Though written in 1988, it was published a decade later and won the Kerala Sahitya Akademi Puraskar with its English translation Kocharethi, the Araya Woman, earning national acclaim. Through rich ethnographic detail and emotional nuance, Narayana's work brought Adivasi life into the heart of Malayalam Sahitya, making a lasting intervention in Indian tribal narratives. Pratibha Rai, a celebrated Odia novelist and social reformer, has been instrumental in bringing Adivasi experiences into the mainstream of Indian literature. Her postdoctoral research on the Bonda tribe enriched novels like Baras Basant Baisakha in 1974 with anthropological insight and cultural nuance. A self-declared Manavtavadi, she critiques caste, class, and gender hierarchies, evident in her protest against discrimination at the Jagannath Mandir and her article Dharm Ka Rang Kala Hai. Tarun Kanti Mishra, a prolific Odia short story writer and novelist, has spent over 5 decades crafting narratives that delve into Visthapan, identity, and marginalization. His novel, set in the Dandkaranya region populated by East Pakistani refugees and tribal communities, offers a layered account of coexistence and socio-cultural transition post-Vibhajan. With 18 short story collections and multiple literary accolades including the Sahitya Akademi Puraskar, Mishra combines literary artistry with administrative depth, shaped by his career as an IAS officer and Chief Information Commissioner, to portray Odisha's changing human landscape with rare sensitivity. Mamang Dai, a celebrated poet, novelist and journalist from Arunachal Pradesh, has crafted a literary bridge between Adivasi Maukhik Paramparai and modern Indian English writing. Her novels, like The Legends of Pensam and The Black Hill, blend memory, myth and colonial history, offering a poetic map of Purvottar Bharat often absent from the national canon. Awarded the Padma Shri 2011 and Sahitya Akademi Puraskar 2017, her works evoke the ecological and cultural symbiosis of the land, positioning her as a leading voice in Adivasi Sahitya and post-colonial eco-narratives. Ruby Hembram is a pioneering Adivasi cultural activist, archivist and publisher who transformed Indian literary discourse by founding Adivani, a Kolkata-based not-for-profit platform. Meaning, First Voices, Adivani amplifies Santal and other Adivasi narratives, publishing in English and regional languages. Hembram's leadership has foregrounded oral traditions, land rights and tribal cosmologies, challenging the marginalization of Adivasi Gyan Pranali. Daughter of theologian Timotheus Hembram and Elvina Hembram, her work bridges activism, publishing and cultural preservation, marking her as a central voice in reclaiming Adivasi Sahitya within Indian writing in English. Hansadas Sovendra Shekhar is an Indian writer from the Santhal tribe in Jharkhand, whose literary work foregrounds the complex social, cultural, and political realities of India's indigenous Adivasi communities. Writing primarily in English, Shekhar has emerged as a significant contemporary voice in post-colonial and subaltern literature, offering rare narrative space to tribal perspectives historically marginalized in Indian literary discourse. His debut novel, The Mysterious Ailment of Rupi Baski in 2014, earned critical acclaim for its portrayal of Santhal life, gendered suffering, and community dynamics. Drawing on oral traditions and lokathaye, the novel reclaims indigenous womanhood through the character Rupi Baske. Challenging stereotypical depictions of tribal societies, his short story collection, The Adivasi Will Not Dance in 2015, directly critiques Rajya and Nigam narratives that commodify Adivasi Sanskriti, especially for tourism. The title story became a symbol of resistance against tokenism, confronting the exploitation and displacement of Adivasi populations. Shekhar's realist yet dignified voice subverts romanticized visions of tribal life while exploring ecological loss, identity, and gender. Expanding his reach to younger audiences, Shekhar authored Jwala Kumar and The Gift of Fire in 2018, later reissued as The Dragon Who Came to Champak Bah in 2021. The children's novel, blending Jadui Yatharthwad, explores themes of belonging and cultural difference in an allegorical setting. Whether for adults or children, Shekhar's works remain rooted in Adivasi Drishtikon, using language, narrative, and myth to challenge erasure and assert literary sovereignty. Through his nuanced fiction, Hansada Sovendra Shekhar elevates Adivasi voices, engaging frameworks like post-colonial eco-criticism, indigenous epistemology, and decolonizing narratology, marking him as an essential figure in contemporary Indian English literature. Jacinta Kerketta, born in 1983, is a prominent Adivasi poet, journalist, and activist whose bilingual poetry in Hindi and English captures the lived realities and resistance of tribal communities in India. Her collections, Angor, Jaddo Ki Zameen, and Ishwar or Bazar serve as testimonial literature, addressing systemic violence, displacement, and gendered oppression. Rooted in personal memory and communal pain, her poems blend protest with introspection, creating a lyrical voice that challenges nationalist and Vikasvadi narratives. Widely translated, her work situates Adivasi Anubhav within global, indigenous, and post-colonial discourse, using poetry as a form of resistance, reclamation, and political awakening. Salge Hansada, born in 1989, is an emerging voice in Santali Sahitya, known for her poignant explorations of displacement, identity, and cultural erosion among Adivasi communities. Her debut novel Janam Dishom Ujaro Kana, Janmadesh Ujad Ho Raha Hai, awarded the Sahitya Akademi Yuva Puraskar in 2022, reflects the slow erasure of indigenous presence in Barigoda, where ancestral lands slip away. Launched in 2021 by Padma Shri Damayanti Beshara, the novel captures the existential crisis of the Santal people. We've now reached the end of chapter 8, and I know what you're thinking. This felt long, a bit dense, and honestly quite unfamiliar, right? That's completely valid. This isn't just another chapter in your syllabus. This is a space that often goes unnoticed even in academic circles. Why? Because these stories of Dalit and Adivasi voices have long been pushed to the margins. They don't always make it into the mainstream classroom, but they speak to something deeper, something that belongs to all of us. Our roots, our shared history, and the many silenced voices of our land. And maybe that's exactly why UGCNet has been making a consistent effort to bring this chapter into focus. In the last few years alone, they've asked 3 to 5 questions from this section in almost every cycle. That's not a coincidence. That's a very deliberate signal. UGC wants you to take this seriously, not just for the sake of marks, but because this is about cultural survival. Think about it. Hundreds of tribes in India have already disappeared without a trace. Languages lost, traditions forgotten, names erased. And If we, as scholars and educators, don't recognize the importance of Dalit and tribal literature, if we treat this as an optional or secondary part of our study, we become complicit in that erasure. But if we choose to engage, even one student at a time, we help document, preserve, and honor these voices. So here's what I want you to do next. Go back through this chapter and make your notes carefully. Don't just memorize names and titles. Understand their significance. Each story, each poem, each novel is a window into a world that has fought hard to exist. And to help you consolidate everything, I've done the hard work for you. I've collected every past year UGC Net question that has been asked on Dalit and tribal narratives, all neatly arranged for practice. You'll find the full set of PYQs in the description box below. This will help you test what you've learned and see exactly how UGC frames its questions from this chapter. And yes, all of this has been drawn from our newly launched book, A Comprehensive Companion to Indian Writing in English. If you haven't got your copy yet, I highly recommend you do. This book is not just a study aid. It's your roadmap to the exam. And I truly believe if you follow it closely, it won't let you down. The link to order is in the description below. Grab your copy today because the earlier you start, the stronger your preparation becomes. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end. I'll see you in the next session. Until then, keep reading, keep reflecting, and keep rising.